kinship chart is that it will be helpful if you can read a kinship chart in the sense of know what the symbols are, know, and be able to, therefore, to get information from it about a family. So, okay. So we've got the Ickles and the, yeah.
So there will be a key with it. That correct, or do we just have to know the symbols?
You'll need to know the symbols.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so what is the symbol for male? For a male family member?
Triangle.
Yep. Okay, female's circle. A line connecting people over the top is sibling relationship. A line connecting people going up and down is,
Parents?
so that indicates a parent-child relationship. What do you think an equal sign means?
Married.
Yes. And then this means partnered, but not formally married. Okay, what do you think a slash means?
Dead or divorced.
Correct. So here the person has died, here the relationship has died. Think of it that way. Ooh. Ooh.
Under Madonna and Sean Penn,
Yes.
what's that?
I think this is a symbol I'm not as familiar with. Twin.
Oh.
And presumably, therefore, these are in order of birth. Presumably. You probably wouldn't need to get into that fine degree of familiarity. Let's see. Anything else?
I guess my only question was, like, we went over in class, like, if it was like it followed the mom side or something,
So if
What-
it's
like who falls into that category or whatever.
So if this was a patrilineal society, who would be in Tip Ickles' family group? Who is in his kin group?
Obviously his dad.
Yes, his mother is also considered related to him. Who else?
It'd be his father and then all his father's siblings.
Yep, so all his father's siblings. Spouse is not considered part of the kin group. But, sort of in that family cluster, but is not technically kin. Okay, what about in the grandparent generation? Who is related to, who is in Tip's kin group?
His father's parents?
Right. Okay, so that would mean Fred and Ginger, Sharon, Mort is not. Now, what about all these folks?
Wait, why is Sharon but Mort is not?
Blood by birth. So Mort is related to his grandmother.
Okay.
So that would make her sibling not necessarily his blood sibling. Or his blood relation. Okay, and all the others?
What are the numbers and letters? Is that just like generational?
That is a system that he put in to make it easy to refer to people without, because what this exercise, this is from an exercise at the end of the chapter 3. And so part of the exercise is putting in the kinship terms. and it's helpful, I think he felt it would be helpful if you have some kind of a designator like that. It does also indicate generation. So in terms of lineage, okay, so this is a patrilineal system. This would be a matrilineal system. Bilateral includes the whole lot of them. And there might be some other kinds of information that one could try to glean from this. Depending on what kinds of information are asked or provided in the question. So, the basic thing is being able to read the chart and get information from it. Other questions about that one? Yeah.
At the beginning of the review, it asks for 4 subfields of
Yes.
ethnography, and we have 4 in our notes, but in Omohundro it has 5.
Is the 5th applied?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Gesundheit.
is that like a different one, or would it count like if for some reason we
Right.
couldn't remember one of the others or something?
Applied anthropology also shows up in Nanda and Worm's chapter as being sort of a 5th subfield, and there's some debate about whether applied anthropology is really a distinct Gesundheit subfield of its own, or is it simply a way of taking information and perspectives from biological anthropology and then using them to solve a problem. So
it's kind of its own.
it's kind of its own. It does depend on the others. But the key, the main 4 are, what are those 4 again? What are those 4 subfields? Bingo. Okay. Are we, any more questions with the kinship chart? All right. Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
In what they talk about, this is chapter 3.
Okay.
I just had a question about all the mechanisms of like distributing goods, especially like reciprocity.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't really talk about that much in class.
Okay.
Yes. And it is, Omohundro has some information about it, but let's talk about it because it's important. So, reciprocity is gift giving. So that's where goods and services move around a society by people giving them to each other. One way to think of this is that any society that doesn't have a formal market economy, one of the really important ways of moving stuff around is going to be through reciprocity. There are 2 different kinds of reciprocity. So one of them is what's called balanced reciprocity. So that's where one person gives something to another, and then that person, there's sort of a culturally designated amount of time that can pass before a return gift really should occur. Balanced reciprocity, the thing that's coming back will be relatively equivalent or similar to, at least in value perhaps, to the thing that was given. So, so can you think of an example of balanced reciprocity in our own society? Reciprocity occurs in all societies. It's a question whether it's the main way of distributing stuff. So, what would be an example of balanced reciprocity? You give something and then you expect something will come back at some culturally appropriate amount of time.
birthday gifts.
Yeah, exactly. And we do this also with invitations. So someone invites you for dinner, it's appropriate at some point in time to literally reciprocate. Anyway, invite them back. Okay, then there's what's called generalized reciprocity. And generalized reciprocity is where a person gives to an individual or to others, and there isn't really a, exactly keeping track of this is, you gave me this and therefore I'm going to give you back, something like that. It's simply given. And if something comes back, it may be similar in value, it may be very different in value. So it's more along the lines of just sharing and knowing that eventually something will come back. Yeah.
Generalized, is that more applicable to like the societies that they need each other in order to survive?
Yes. So there, what your question is getting at is then what happens as a result of the way that things get distributed in a society. So when things are distributed through reciprocity, what that does is that reinforces the relationships between the individuals in the group. It reinforces their connections because those things are going back and forth and things carry relationship with it. So generalized reciprocity is very typical in foraging societies. We see it, so the Kung, they use reciprocity, very much generalized reciprocity too, as their way of moving things around. Can we think of an example in U.S. society of generalized reciprocity? Between whom and whom?
Could be spouses, husband and
Yeah.
wife, parents and kids, persons, just in general.
Yep, and particularly it tends to go from upper generation to lower generation. So grandma gives you a nice gift. What do you need to give grandma? A hug. A hug, a card. Love and appreciation, call her once in a while. So,
What
yeah.
about like acts of service between like organizations that go and serve, like, I don't know, the homeless or?
Yeah, that is also, I think you could say, a form of generalized reciprocity. Yeah. Okay. And particularly, it's uncommon and perhaps even considered almost a violation of the relationship for someone to expect sort of direct repayment in a relationship that's based in generalized reciprocity. So if your parents give you an itemized bill for every expense they have incurred to get you to this point in your life, that would be a violation of the relationship and we're not just counting Barry, okay? I know Barry's expensive, but everything else that got you here. So that would be a violation of the generalized reciprocity idea. Redistribution. Redistribution is where stuff goes into a central person, position, or if we're talking about a society like ours, an agency, and then gets distributed back out evenly to everyone in the group. Yeah.
Would the video we watched about the water be an example of that, or is that not the same thing?
Interesting thought.
Because like, the priests have control over like how much water each person gets to irrigate their farms.
The reason why it might not match is because the farmers didn't first give the water to the temple. But you're right that that idea of a central Howard that then distributes stuff out equally that's definitely along the lines of redistribution. Political systems like those with chiefs very often have redistribution, and we'll meet that later on in the semester. And we have redistribution to a certain degree in our own society. Things like roads, schools, access to at least emergency medical care. Whole variety of services that we receive. And so if we're going to then think about what that form of distributing stuff, what are its social implications? If you're in a redistributive system, by contributing into it and then receiving what is sent back out, that is part of being a member of that group. So only members of that group receive whatever it is in a redistribution system. So it reinforces the relationship between individuals and that central thing. And then market exchange is simply buying and selling. It's using some kind of a cash medium. That is different. It's in some ways peculiar compared to the other forms of distribution because it does not generally create any kind of relationship. It neither requires a social tie nor does it create a social tie. Once upon a time, I sort of liked to get, gas from our, somebody who's had a station right near our neighborhood, and the person lived in our neighborhood. It's been sold, I think, 2 times since. So, there was something I attached to that, but no necessity for having any kind of connection for market exchange.
Does it have to have like a currency involved?
I guess hypothetically you could have just trading.
Okay.
But it almost always has some kind of currency, some kind of equivalent. Could be cowrie shells. Those have been used as currency for a long time. Doesn't have to be printed money, but it does have some kind of equivalent.